Imagine waking up one morning and realizing that almost every product you buy, from your favorite pair of sneakers to the car you drive, is about to get more expensive if it's made outside the United States. Think about it. That next TV, smartphone, or even the everyday vacuum cleaner you pick up at your local store could cost you more. Why? Because of something called tariffs. Tariffs are back in the spotlight thanks to former President Donald Trump, who loves them so much he famously called them his favorite word. But are tariffs good or bad? Will they boost American jobs and the economy, or just make everything cost more? In today's comprehensive breakdown, we're going to explore what Trump's proposed tariffs are, what exactly tariffs do, whether they cause inflation, and whether these new Trump tariffs will actually become reality. This is crucial information for any American consumer, investor, or business owner looking to understand the real impact of these policies. Let's get started. In today's video, we are covering what are the Trump tariffs, what are tariffs in general, are tariffs inflationary, and will the Trump tariffs actually pass? First, I want to show you some video clips of Trump. So if you didn't know, Trump is a huge fan of tariffs. I want to show you these clips so that we're on the same page regarding his stance. Trump has said multiple times, and I quote, "To me, the most beautiful word in the dictionary is tariff, and it's my favorite word." He has even doubled down by repeating, "It's the most beautiful word in the dictionary, tariff. It will save our country. Only stupid people don't want to use it, or corrupt people also." So it's clear, no secret there, that Trump is a big fan of tariffs. Trump has floated the idea of imposing a 10% tariff on all foreign imports. This is a massive, across-the-board suggestion. I want to show you more content where Trump discusses this concept. In an interview, he's asked, "Would you want tariffs on foreign goods coming into the US, take those revenues, and cut taxes on American goods and American families here?" The interviewer probes whether this would be something in a second Trump term. Trump responds that he thinks we should have, as he puts it, a ring around the collar. He argues that when companies come in and dump their products in the United States, they should pay automatically, let's say a 10% tax. He claims that money could be used to pay off debt. He says it would be a massive amount of money, and that even a 10% tariff wouldn't stop business since it's not that high, but it would be enough to raise a lot of revenue. Now let me explain to you what a tariff is in more basic terms. A tariff is a tax that is imposed on goods imported from another country. Let's use Toyota cars as an example to make this super clear. Suppose a Toyota Camry costs $30,000 and it's made outside of America. If there's a 10% import tariff, then there's a $3,000 tax if you want to bring that Toyota Camry into the US to sell it. The purpose of a tariff is to make foreign products more expensive. If foreign products are more expensive, the idea is that US consumers will be more likely to buy products that are made in America, since American products would be cheaper without that extra tax. It also incentivizes foreign companies to invest in America and build their products here to avoid the tariff, thus creating jobs, infrastructure, and boosting domestic production. To further illustrate this point, let me show you a perspective from Charlie Kirk. Kirk explains that when we impose tariffs, it can encourage foreign manufacturers to produce their goods inside the US to avoid paying the tariff. For example, Toyota pickup trucks face a 25% tariff. To dodge that, Toyota decided to make their pickup trucks in America. This policy encourages companies to re-domicile labor and production back to the United States. Supporters of tariffs say this promotes domestic production, creates American jobs, boosts our economy, and the government collects more tax revenue. These are the theoretical benefits. However, we also have to talk about the costs, and the biggest cost is inflation. Tariffs raise the price of imported goods. If we rely heavily on imports for certain products, those costs go up, and ultimately, consumers pay more. The question is, do the pros outweigh the cons? To further illustrate this point, let me show you a perspective from Charlie Kirk. Kirk explains that when we impose tariffs, it can encourage foreign manufacturers to produce their goods inside the US to avoid paying the tariff. For example, Toyota pickup trucks face a 25% tariff. To dodge that, Toyota decided to make their pickup trucks in America. This policy encourages companies to re-domicile labor and production back to the United States. Supporters of tariffs say this promotes domestic production, creates American jobs, boosts our economy, and the government collects more tax revenue. These are the theoretical benefits. However, we also have to talk about the costs, and the biggest cost is inflation. Tariffs raise the price of imported goods. If we rely heavily on imports for certain products, those costs go up, and ultimately, consumers pay more. The question is, do the pros outweigh the cons? To understand why tariffs might be inflationary, consider the concept of competitive advantage. Some countries can produce certain goods more cheaply due to their resources, supply chains, labor costs, and regulations. For example, think of solar energy generation, California versus Illinois. California has a competitive advantage due to more sunlight and fewer clouds, making solar power cheaper there. Likewise, some countries have a competitive advantage in making clothes, electronics, or other products cheaply. Here's a fact that might surprise you. 97% of clothing that Americans buy is not made in America. If you look at the tags on your shirt, there's a 97% chance it's from outside the US, often countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, or India. Why is that? Because employees in Bangladesh might earn around $150 a month, which is about 87 cents an hour, a fraction of US labor costs. Plus, environmental and regulatory standards might be more relaxed, reducing costs further. This makes these countries' products cheaper. If we put a 10% tariff on clothing, given that 97% is imported, all that would happen is prices would rise by roughly 10%. You wouldn't suddenly have a thriving US clothing industry overnight because it's still cheaper to import even after the tariff. The main effect would be inflation on clothing prices. Clothing is just one example. Consider that 70% of everything sold at Walmart is imported. A sweeping 10% tariff on all imports would raise prices at Walmart and many other retailers, leading to inflation. Trump argues that this would have a massive positive effect, but critics say it will cause widespread price increases. Now, who pays the tariff? Some might think foreign countries pay it. Trump has said that a tariff is a tax on a foreign country, but let's break it down practically. If Walmart imports a vacuum cleaner from China at $100 and sells it for $150, that's a $50 profit. With a 10% tariff, Walmart now has to pay a $10 tax on that imported vacuum. To maintain their $50 profit, Walmart will raise the final price to $160. The consumer ends up paying more. So effectively, US consumers pay the tariff in the form of higher prices, even though it's collected at the border from the importer, not directly from the consumer. The money then goes to the US Treasury, increasing government revenue. How much tax revenue are we talking about? In 2024, the US government collected nearly $5 trillion in taxes. A 10% tariff on all imports could bring in around $400 billion each year, which is about 8% more revenue. While that's significant, it's not enough to fund everything. Historically, 100 years ago, tariffs funded about 93% of the federal government's revenue. But at that time, the federal government was much smaller, about 2.7% of GDP. Today, government spending is about 25% of GDP. Our government is roughly 10 times bigger relative to the economy, so tariffs alone can't fund it all now. Some people argue that Trump imposed tariffs before, and it didn't cause runaway inflation. But remember, Trump's previous tariffs were more targeted, affecting around $400 billion of imports. That generated about $80 billion in extra tax revenue. It's much smaller than a universal 10% tariff on all $4 trillion of imports. The scale matters. My opinion is that a universal 10% tariff on all imports is unlikely to happen. Will Trump create new tariffs if given the chance again? Yes, likely. But they'll probably be targeted, focusing on specific countries, most likely China, rather than a universal across-the-board tariff. There are two probable outcomes if Trump reintroduces major tariffs. One possibility is that Trump backtracks. He has changed his mind on many things in the past. For example, he's appointed advisors he later fired and changed his stance on Bitcoin from calling it a scam to wanting the US to be the crypto capital of the world. People can evolve their opinions. Another possibility is that Congress will block a universal tariff. The Constitution grants Congress the power to impose tariffs, not the president. The president can impose them under certain exceptions, such as threats to national security or unfair trade practices. If Trump tries a blanket 10% tariff, Congress might step in or argue that these exceptions don't apply. Even though Republicans might control the House and Senate, complex procedural hurdles and the existence of rhinos, Republicans in name only, could complicate passage. So now you know the possible benefits of tariffs: encouraging domestic production, potentially creating jobs, and raising revenue. You also know the drawbacks: inflation, higher consumer prices, and not necessarily reviving industries that rely on ultra-cheap foreign labor. Ultimately, the question boils down to, will it produce more good than harm? Are we willing to pay more for a vacuum cleaner or a t-shirt in exchange for potentially more US jobs and revenue? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you think the pros outweigh the cons, or is this a policy that would hurt American consumers more than it helps? Let me know what you think in the comments. Please remember to subscribe to this channel for more in-depth coverage of economic policies, global trade, and their impact on your wallet. Your support means a lot. Thank you for watching, and I wish you a great day. Take care.